for this episode, I really wanted to focus on software development and what the future holds, how software applies to metal fab.
I get so excited about the software stack now. The front end becoming so accessible to literally every company is, I think, what's going to change a lot of stuff.
And that's one thing that I think that manufacturers kind of butt heads with software folks, because software is move fast and break things, right? Well, move fast and break things in manufacturing costs a lot of money. Welcome to the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. I'm your host, Tim Heston. In each episode, I'll be joined by a rotation of co-hosts. Caleb Chamberlain from OSH Cut, Cody Lee from Everyday Technologies, and Lance Thrakill from All Metals Fabricating. Together, we'll talk about what the future could look like for precision sheet metal and tube fabrication.
Hey, Cody Lee of Everyday Technologies here. Before we get back to the episode, I just wanted to say a quick word about what I believe is the industry's leading quoting and collaboration software, Paperless Parts. It helps my shop and hundreds more across North America simplify every step of the quoting process in one secure platform. With patented technology and automated costing logic built around how we work, we're able to turn RFQs quickly and accurately. It's easy to train new team members, and with ERP integration, we avoid rework after winning a job. It gives us better visibility into our pipeline and margins and helps us deliver a fast, more polished experience to our customer. And beyond the software, the Paperless Parts team has been a true partner, responsive, and genuinely invested in our success. Visit paperlessparts.com to see why we rely on it every day.
Thanks for joining me again for Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. With me today, Cody Lee and Caleb Chamberlain. This is being recorded July 11th to be exact. Lance Thrakill is, I believe, on his way back from Europe. I'll be talking with him one-on-one for our next episode. But for this episode, I really wanted to kind of dovetail off last episode's focus on software development, and what the future holds, how software applies to metal fab. So Cody, just kind of to refresh us, bring me through kind of the information automation transformation that Everyday Technologies went through early on when you arrived. How do they quote? How do they handle orders? And how did it flow through the shop? And then kind of bring me through where you are today with that.
Yeah, for sure. So Everyday's been around for a while. I purchased the business 4 years ago. It was funny because I think it was earlier this week, I was actually talking to one of our accounting ladies, and she has been here for 25 years. And she was actually reminiscing of a time when she first got here. They were just exiting out of literally doing their accounting by hand, and all job travelers were by hand. They kind of had a blank document that they would fill out per time.
When you say they were doing accounting by hand, were they like publishing 2-column trial balances and
An actual general ledger that was a book that they whipped out.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I can't fathom it, but it reminded me of like watching like Scrooge. You know how he's got the ledger book out, and they're writing everything with a feather and some ink. So, they were
So you guys were way more advanced. You didn't use feathers and inks. You used
right. Yeah, they had mechanical pens. But that said, they shortly after that, that would have been in the early 90s. They, progressed to an ERP system that they had at the time. It was very basic. By the time I came around in 2021, that's kind of where they were living. They had a very, basic ERP system. Accounting was done in QuickBooks. And they did have job travelers that followed the floor, but all the information was pretty stagnant. Meaning that, once you put it in there, that's kind of how it lived for the rest of its life. So fast forward, some of the technology we've introduced since I've been here. Obviously, the biggest one is an ERP system. We use Plex, and that touches all corners of our business, from accounting, inventory, purchasing, engineering, quality, all that stuff. And that's all live data, that's being used and edited every single day. Beyond that, there's been some technology, software related on the production side. So, whether it be nesting software that we use today, or a press brake software that we use from a programming standpoint, and the automation that comes with that, that's made a huge difference in our business in the last couple of years. And then here most recently, we got introduced to Paperless Parts, which is a quoting software. We went live with that about 5 or 6 months ago. And, that's helped streamline a lot of our processes from, being awarded a part to getting that part information into our ERP system from a bill of materials, standards, all that stuff that is required to hit the floor. And then, of course, just the efficiencies and the accuracy that comes along with the different benefits that it gets from the quoting side. So that's kind of in a nutshell from a software standpoint in our business the last 3 or 4 years.
Right, and that journey kind of reflects, a lot of, the transformation we've seen with a lot of our readers and a lot of fab shop owners. Kind of very traditional, though. The manual ledger, that's a new one to me. That's something.
Again, that's not under my belt, but that was once upon a time.
But yeah, I mean, Caleb, I just wanted to pick your brain here. Again, you don't have to go through obviously OSH Cut's journey. This is, we've chatted about this in previous episodes, and if you want to learn more about it, click back on our archives. But kind of bring me through where you are today. You said you were, really excited about. What you've done recently and kind of what the future holds, and how software is going to kind of transform certain aspects of the fabrication enterprise.
I think we entered the scene a little at a unique time. We entered as software developers, and so we spun our own solutions. That was kind of our go-to rather than finding stuff off the shelf. So what we ended up doing is we wrote a lot of our own software. We wrote our own inventory system and so on. We actually spent a very long time basically reinventing ERP. It's debatable whether that was the right move, because at the same time we were reinventing ERP, our competitors were adding services and killing us on marketing. Um, but now we have a really, really nice tool that allows us to be hyper efficient, and it's generalized and capable, and we like it a lot. So, we'll see what the opportunity cost of that was. But when I say we kind of entered an interesting time, if I started a business today, I probably still would reinvent this stuff knowing what I know now, but I would use an entirely different supply or a software tool chain. Um, and I would take advantage of what AI allows people to do today that I see new companies doing right now. I get on Twitter, X, I guess, and I see all these people starting new businesses, building front ends. They call it vibe coding, I guess, but they're building front ends to you know, enable instant quoting and rapid configuration and customization across a whole bunch of different verticals. And they do it so fast. They're like, "Hey, I have this idea." And they come back a weekend later and they're like, "Here's the first article, the demo." And man, there's such a massive acceleration that's happening. And I think what it's probably going to do is really democratize access to customized software tools, and it'll make it a lot cheaper. Um, and you'll see more and more and more shops just picking that up and running with it because it becomes so easy.
Are these shops in fabrication, or are they in shops in 3D printing and machining? Where are these folks in
Yeah,
the?
one of them, one of these shops is, I mean, these are brand new, like, pre-seed style companies. They're not courting VC capital, but they're very young, is what I mean to say. But we're talking. There's one who's doing a electrical box configuration tool. So you lay out an entire electrical cabinet with cable ducts and contactors and all kinds of stuff, and then you click an order button, and it just shows up. At least that's the business model. So you design exactly the thing, and then a finished electrical box shows up at your door, which is awesome. So the hyper customization, right now, it just becomes super easy and fast to do that. Another one is for custom cable assembly. You pick the connectors on both ends that you use, and you can drag drop how you want the wires to connect from one end to the other. You specify the wire type, the current capacity, the jacket type, all that stuff. It renders it for you, gives you a price and a lead time. You click purchase. That was like a weekend project for the guy who made it. Um, so yeah, it's incredible. Like, no matter what people say, people I think are slow to realize what's happening, but it only gets better from here. So that's why I get so excited about the software stack now, the things you can do with LLMs, with AI. It's just like, yeah, any niche product, and for context, like, custom cables are a niche product, but it's not tiny. It's a big market. Um, you just build this configuration tool that lets you build a customized product and bid on it. And of course, the back end's the hard part, right? Actually making it. So we can't ignore that. But the front end becoming so accessible to literally every company is, I think, what's going to change a lot of stuff. So
And I can see, I mean, just enclosures, like a NEMA enclosure or something where, NEMA enclosure for a certain area of the market where, I mean, I mean, a lot of this, they already have designs out there. So it's like, all right, the design is there. But then there's that long tail of, all right, well, I need, so these essentially are product configurators, right? On steroids. Is that basically what it is?
yeah, product configurator doesn't sound very good, but yeah, that's essentially what they are. So you configure the product, and then on the back end, you convert that set of configuration into a manufacturable set of drawings and so on. Our neighbors, this company called Mata Wheelchair that makes wheelchairs. Um, there's a whole story behind why that's the case, but they're building wheelchairs with like a 2-week turnaround for $5,000 compared to like a 6 to 12 month turnaround um, in the insurance if you do it through insurance, and for way more expensive through insurance. So like they're just kept reimagining the whole software stack that drives manufacturing, and it is so cool.
Do they actually manufacture in-house, or or do they
Yeah,
sell
they
all the product?
manufacture in-house, yeah.
So they have 2
Yeah, they're our
bender.
neighbors. We go over there. We work with them all the time, but they've got a tube laser. They've got a mandrel tube bender. They've got robot arms doing welding. They package them up, crate them up, and ship them all over the country. Um,
Ah,
just
and
like totally stepping around the crazy insurance, like 10-layered bureaucracy that exists to get a wheelchair. You can just buy it online for 5 grand, exactly customized to fit you. It's awesome. But
wow.
it's all this new software that enables that. It's really cool.
Just curious, maybe you were getting to this, or maybe there was a segue in it, but um, I'm curious for your business. I know you got a lot of custom software that you guys have developed and iterated on over the years. But with AI becoming so like front and center these days, um, and what's like a specific or concrete example, if there is one, of what AI and what it is able to do specific to your business? And I ask that because it's, in some cases very similar to ours, right? Sheet metal fab that you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, 4 years ago, I couldn't imagine this, but today we're able to do X, Y, Z.
Well, it helps us write software better, is what it boils down to. There might be a long-term application where AI allows us to, do manufacturability or whatever. But my perspective on that is that if you know what tools you have and you know how a piece of metal is going to bend on your press brake, it's better to do DFM from first principles and just test it that way. So AI doesn't really have a place, but AI can help you build the tools that do the DFM from first principles, if that makes any sense.
Are you guys using software more on the front end, so like order entry, quoting, like just admin type stuff, or are you using it equally as much out on the floor?
Oh, our software touches literally everything from quote. We don't do data entry ever, and it's because we've automated it all. Um, uh, and when we receive an order, our system, it generates the work order, it generates the production schedule, it pushes it out onto the floor, it pops up on the work consoles. That's all just completely automated.
Right.
It kind of has to be for our business model. So we basically drove our office overhead costs down to zero and replaced it with software engineering labor. Software engineering is a fixed cost
Right.
because you capitalize all the R&D. Now you have a software product. And you can, of course, prorate that fixed cost across lots and lots of volume, whereas um, office overhead for data entry is a marginal cost and grows with your revenue. So I will take that trade any day for sure. But
Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting is the back end. Do you have is there any data entry in your shop, Caleb, as far as like when you measure a part, let's say, or first article inspection,
oh
or
yeah, so
is that
that counts. Yeah, we're never copying stuff. We're never copying stuff out of a PDF and entering it into our ERP. But when we do first article inspection measurements, we do record them in our system, and I guess that counts as data entry. So
Right. And to riff off that, there have been some. I went to a conference recently where there's some quality management software that actually dovetails into the ERP that it measures, and you don't have to. There's no. It gets rid of that data entry as well, which it has been. I mean, I've seen folks with the arms, the scanning arms, and then they fat finger a measurement in, and then they rework something they didn't have to rework. I really look at the value of software as getting rid of every keystroke possible throughout the entire metal fabrication value stream, and being able to just you manage the workflow versus keying in any data, because keying in data it doesn't add value. But what I see that's interesting is do you see I mean, it isn't a technical. I mean, software jargon. It's not technically a product configurator. There's specific software for that that's been around for years. But do you see this kind of AI, this kind of configuration up front through applicable in the custom fab space, where you've got I know, Caleb, your model is all horizontal, and cut bands from across across industries. But as we've talked about different business models in metal fab, you have certain shops that focus on production of certain value streams within certain industries, and then continue to add value of welding, welding, powder coating, all the way down to assembly. And sometimes white good sales, white label, private label. And with those, you could separate out that value stream and almost make a sub company and automate the front end of that product. In other words, you wouldn't have any, on the front end, they'd it would be configured automatically by the customer. The DFM would have it's product configuration and DFM in one, is what I'm saying, is that they could configure it and then go, okay, but your costs are this, this creates this cost because you have this hardware here. But if you move it down here, we'll be able to access this on our shop floor. We won't have to move the hardware press, or we won't have to go back and forth between hardware and the press brake. And this will reduce your cost this much because this is how we track our costs. And all this could happen digitally before anything hits the floor.
yeah, so the way to look at that, Tim, is I think we've all become accustomed to a ordering workflow. B2B can be very different, but especially on the consumer level, we've become accustomed to this workflow, which is you visit a website and you click, 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 type something in, press buy, and it shows up on your doorstep, in a day or a week, really fast. When it comes to custom product categories in any industry, I think what we'll see is more and more manufacturers leveraging the accessibility of software to create that click to order experience. And from a B2B perspective, it still works. You click to quote, and then you have a formal quote that's a PDF. And then when you receive that PO, you just click a button and it converts into an order and shows up on the floor. I mean, that's what we do. So it's actually not inimical to B2B. It still works. And what you'll end up having is either much easier quoting workflow for your people, or an engineer does the bidding in a self-serve kind of a way, but whatever happens, it just kind of works. So, pick a product category. If there's any customization that happens at all, it's just ripe to be innovated with software and to improve that customer end-to-end experience.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. And Cody, I wanted to ask you specifically, like, yesterday. What's interesting is yesterday, this is going to be out in the magazine soon, but yesterday I was talking with a CEO who's buying a bunch of small shops that have had you visit them, and it's we're talking 10 to 20 people in these shops, and very, very small revenue, but constant long-term customer relationships, and it's like nothing has changed for decades. They have one serves the railroad industry for certain products, one serves other industries that just haven't changed a whole lot over the years. I mean, it's just been reliable and relationship based, and they've had really solid margins for all these years. But they haven't grown. They're still tend to, it's a very small shop, and so assembling them together and trying to kind of build a new platform, new entity, to start measuring things and starting to produce things in a new way, which is very interesting, which is what the story is about. But Cody, regarding your shop, you started, you know, now you're light years ahead of the manual ledger, feather quill and all. And so now that you've implemented, say, automated quoting, and now you have the advanced ERP that's measuring, you have good metrics and current metrics. How has that guided your top line development for searching new customers? What do you do now to search for a new customer today that you didn't do a couple of years back?
Well, I mean, for us, especially whenever I first came in here, there wasn't really a sales strategy or, um, an intention behind growing sales. It had been like that for a little while. I'm not saying they didn't have spurts of being more serious about that, but um, what's interesting is for a shop like ours, our customers are OEM, right? So we tailor to a certain type of customer, and generally, what comes along with that is a lot of requirements to be able to even just knock on their door. And it's actually got me thinking as we have this conversation, Caleb's pain points and the things that they solve with software, while they're still relevant to what we do, we have a different set of pain points, which really come on the admin side, which is probably ripe for software. But you think about all these different quality management systems and, lean things and just really all this documentation and stuff that you have to have readily available. Um, you know, at a moment's notice, you could be audited by your customers, et cetera. And that costs overhead and people to be able to manage those things and keep them current, et cetera. And I'm curious what, software or AI can participate in that lane. But all that to say, uh, what software, particularly like the ERP, and it was really just gain capacity in areas that we didn't have it before. Obviously, you buy a new laser and it's 3 times faster, 10 times faster, whatever, it gives you more capacity, but just different things to allow us to bring the work in quicker. And I guess a concrete example of that would be, in the last 6 to 12 months, we've engage with some new customers, just between myself and our sales guy going out knocking on doors, whether that be through LinkedIn or whatever it may be. But the ability to react quick to them wanting an RFQ, um, and having the capacity on hand to be able to, you know, administer all that stuff and bring on the new work, um, I guess has really been like the biggest thing as far as software relates.
And I have a comment too on that, as far as managing the lean documentation and also the certifications that you have to maintain and all the quality manuals and the customer audits. Did a story a couple of years back on a Texas, actually it was a repair shop. It was a custom repair shop. That did fabrication, but they were refurbishing specific kinds of construction vehicles for the oil and gas industry. And so it was very specific kind of industry where bidding was almost impossible. You could get the truck and you're just like, all right, we got to look at the truck to see what we need to do with it. And so it was very like, all right, so how do we standardize this? And so they came up with a program, a system of doing it where they brought it in and then somebody would come in and click on what they used was low code software, which is basically it's nothing more. I mean, it's an access database behind it. It's pretty, pretty basic, but the low code software set is basically like, if this, then do this. And so they would organize all their PDFs, all their drawings, all their standard operating procedures so that it could be brought up in a moment's notice when they see a problem in front of them, they go click, 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 boom, there it is. Where prior to that, they would have to walk. It was a huge plant because these huge trucks. And so they would walk over here and say, all right, Mac, what do I do here? Oh, and you go to a file cabinet and pull it out. It was a very old school business. Well, they digitized everything and through a low code, very next to free platform. I think it was a Microsoft platform and no coding experience, just basically, they call it low code, but basically it's just, working. If you can work with an Access database, you can get it. It's not nothing fancy. And they would bring it up and it would say, all right, there's the drawing. This is what we need to do. And they were doing it for auditing purposes as well. So, where they would streamline that by digitizing the entire if they had a cause map they had to put in or a process map, it would be there so that if the auditor came in, oh, yep, this is your procedures, this is how you do it, this is where it's posted, and this is where we bring it up. And everybody on the floor had iPads. That way they'd bring it up and say, all right, here's the documentation. And it made it a lot easier because they were just extraordinarily high mix. And that's the issue is that, well, we're high mix. How can we standardize this? Well, this is the way to do it.
Right.
So yeah, and maintenance records too, which is a huge thing, and keep making sure that everything is set. So, but yeah, but you mentioned how you communicate with customers differently now. Like, describe that. Give me an example as far as all right now with the information at your fingertips, what can you tell customers that you couldn't tell before?
A lot of our customers today, all of them want cost breakdowns with all their quotes, right? And so that's just like sometimes granular data that's very hard to extract if you've got a very basic way of quoting, right? Like we did when we got here. So as much as I really don't enjoy putting those things together, it's oftentimes a requirement, and getting that data extracted out of like a software like paperless has been huge. And, it's a silly one. I mean, ChatGPT, everybody's got access to it, and can do some really cool things. And actually, in our business, quite a few people use it in a spectrum of different reasons. But even the other day, we were putting together a new process flow. With all this new technology and software that we've added, some of the ways and work instructions that we've had in the past about how things get done, like entering a new job or just introducing new work to the floor, being able to just quickly go to like ChatGPT and give it a couple high level bullet points of how it works in your business, and then it put together something that's really easy to read and streamline and all that stuff. Where before, I mean, we literally have documents where people were in Microsoft Word, and like making little diamond shaped things, process flow maps and all that stuff. You don't really have to spend time doing anymore. It's a small little thing, but those kind of things save hours.
And, we're seeing that a lot. And, Caleb, I wanted to get your insight specifically on, I mean, when we've chatted before, and again, y'all can go back to the archives of the podcast and we delve deep into this, but how, again, having, software expertise in house, your operators in the past have said, hey, wouldn't it be great if you do this? A couple hours later, you punch it out, and you and you revise it, and it's out to the floor, which is great. But kind of bring me through how AI tools have streamlined that, where you're writing, where it helps you write software. So does it help you revise? It help you give new insights, or uh, or new ways to make software live in your business, like as far as trials, as far as the process flow of software development, so to speak.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. The first is that the trend is that it will become easier and easier to ask a computer to do something for you, and it'll just do it. I mean, it's true right now. I can give ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or any of these other models. I can give them data and say, "Hey, can you graph this for me?" And they go, "Oh, okay," and they go and write a Python script that graphs that data. Um, like they're just writing code. Yeah, I didn't ask them to write code, but they're writing code to solve the problem I asked them to solve. And they're not perfect yet, but it's a young technology. I mean, come on, give us in a decade. What do you think that's going to look like? So what ends up happening is that everybody can write software just by conversationally talking to a computer and asking it to do something for them. And uh, you know, I mean, what's that going to do when an operator has an idea about some new way to present information? They can just ask the computer to do it. I mean, that'll for sure happen. And I'm not sure exactly what path it'll take to get there, but I think sometimes it takes a generation raised with these kind of tools to really understand what it's going to be able to do. So I think that'll happen. And a cool thing about that is that ordinarily enterprise software is so far removed. The developers are so far removed from the users that it's just kind of like it creates bad software from a user experience perspective. And it's just kind of baked into how, like, who the buyers are and who the developers are and who the sellers are and who the users are. There's just a bunch of different layers insulating the developers from the users. But when the user is also the developer, then the perfect tool can be made. And so I think those two things happening together are going to create a massive accelerator on just the kind of custom fit solutions that we see produced. I'm excited to see how it goes, actually.
What's interesting is when I visit most shops these days, there's still that inconsistency. Like you have some operators who set up a break differently than another operator, right? I mean that's traditionally, and so when they bring in the software, they say, all right, we're going to standardize their setups across shifts. I'm still writing about that. They have first shift and second shift have that variability. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And so when you have software, I was just laughing because I was like, if everybody has the power to write their own software, then maybe we'll get some Homer Simpson vehicles. If you remember The Simpsons, where they have the Homer Simpsons vehicle where it has all sorts of crap all over the place. Businesses will have to be built so that they can make best use of that technology and not let it get out of control. Uh,
It might be one thing to display information in some unique way or tweak a workflow in some way. You obviously don't want a laser operator on the floor conversationally changing how your software interacts with your general ledger, or your quoting engine. So obviously, there's got to be some good scaffolding to make sure everything works right. And yeah, I don't know what it'll look like, but
and that's one thing that I think that manufacturers kind of butt heads with software folks because software is move fast and break things, right? Well, move fast and break things in manufacturing costs a lot of money.
again, Mark Zuckerberg's backed away from that mantra as Facebook grew. They no longer say move fast and break things.
They've broken things enough already, right? So it's one of those things. Yeah, but I just see, what have y'all used, Cody, have you used Chat GPT for, reports or emails or sales or anything like that as far as, actually to communicate with customers and go, okay, this is an easier way to streamline this tedious function that we had before in the office.
I mean, nothing that. So short answer is yes, but nothing that like impacts a day to day, process or something we're doing. I mean, I do find it interesting that, I mean, Caleb hit it on the head, man. It's like this technology is so young, and it'll be so interesting to see how it develops and evolves and gets in everybody's lives in the next decade. Um, but I walk around the shop or even in the office, and a quality manager who's in his late 50s, you wouldn't expect to be jumping on ChatGPT, but he uses it to wordsmith or change up his email response to customers whenever it comes to you know a quality reject or something like that, right? To like, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but I see him have it up all the time, and his emails come across very professional, which is great. Um, but like a weird example of it was the other day. I was actually having a conversation with a newer customer about terms, and they wanted us. We got awarded some business, and then after we got awarded it, they wanted us to basically enter into a stocking agreement where we're going to agree to put these parts on the shelf for at least 4 months or 4 weeks of stock. And what I asked for is a reduction in terms, by at least a month. Um, because basically what they're doing is extending our terms by us having to keep our their finished goods on our shelf. And she wanted me to basically draft an explanation of how that impacts our business, which I knew in my head like what that means from a cash cycle standpoint, et cetera. So I just gave some information to ChatGPT, right? Just said, here's an example, blah blah blah, and it put together this really sophisticated thing, and I sent it off to her, and she was just like, okay, thanks. I never heard anything again. So it's like it's almost like the response was so good, to the credit of like how ChatGPT put it together, that they're just like, all right, well, they know what they're talking about. I'm not gonna press them anymore on that. But so I mean, there's all kinds of weird examples. Just today, we just put out a job description for a new financial controller, and just using ChatGPT to come up with a job description, and just kind of tweaking it from there. So there's all kinds of little things throughout your business that people use it for. Even Plex, our ERP system, there's things that happen, occasionally where everyone's kind of stumped on why it's not doing this or whatever, or can we do that inside of this system? And ChatGPT knows a heck of a lot about Plex, which is crazy. And it's helped answer some questions there about our ERP system. So curious to see where we'll be able to take it from there.
A little scary, me being a writer. Like, dear God, look at that. I have actually, and this is embarrassing to admit, but I'm going to say this publicly. I've put in write a whatever, write a story in the style just for, to be honest, copyright reasons. Write a
Yeah.
story in the style of Tim Heston,
Yeah.
and dear God, it gets me. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's
use it, the better it'll be too.
what I do is actually use it to I call them my cliches I always freaking use, we're like,
Yeah.
all right, and it helps me clean it up. It's like, all right, don't use that word because ChatGPT just farmed out, just, crawled the web for all your bylines and say, yep, oh, I always say that. Stop saying that. This, come on.
Well, there was
So
a guy that I was talking to, that does a podcast, and he is, I don't know if he's went live with it yet, but he's literally using AI. So it's two people that aren't real having a dialogue together, right? And you can't really tell. And they give it, points to talk about. But when you listen to this 30-minute podcast, it's no humans talking or having a conversation. But he sent me a clip of it. It was like, 10 minutes worth. And if he wouldn't have told me that was, basically two robots talking to each other, you would have no idea. And they were talking about sheet metal fabrication topics.
they were.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they
Oh, yeah.
gave some of the information to it. These are the I don't know what that looked like exactly, but, um, yeah, it was pretty wild.
Well, big reveal. We are not real. We're bots. Wow. Oh my
But
gosh.
Jim, I think it's going to become so normal for this. There's going to be a massive explosion of content online. There already has been, and that there are content creators or companies and individuals creating content at scale to completely game and manipulate search engine results, and that's happening for sure. Um, I think that people are going to get really sensitive to that reality, and people are going to zone out the minute anything sounds uninteresting or like non-novel or so. In defense of you as a writer, and maybe to give you my perspective on that is that um, if you have interesting things to say, then you're going to be fine.
The one thing I do like, though, about talking about, I know AI, it's I ad, and it just ad nauseum. You just get so sick and tired of it. But when you actually talk about people, and I'm actually writing a piece about kind of a thought leader in AI who's thinking about what it's going to do to manufacturing. He has some interesting insight, but it's real stuff. There's so much in AI that is not that is again content online sales, bots, heck, fake girlfriends for crying out loud. And it's like, man, geez Louise, what is this? So at least, when you insert it into the value chain of a business, especially manufacturing, where you're actually making tangible things, there's some interesting aspects, and I write this in an essay in our FabTech preview that'll be coming out in a couple weeks, and it may be already out by the time you listen to this. But it's I call AI just an information automation tool. I know technically speaking, there's information automation is a business term that people use for automated information flow, which is not really AI, but I just look at it as just you have machine automation and information automation. That's the easy way to look at it. Machine automation moves material, and information automation processes information and automates the flow of information throughout the enterprise, including the metal fab shop. And the way and the more you can automate the flow of that information and streamline it from design all the way to ship, the better. Because there's so I've historically I've visited so many fab shops where I visit and the engineer is clicking on a SolidWorks file just to check it to make sure, or clicking on something. It's like, is that adding value, or are they just entering something into a system? And I see that that's where it really is just going to be transformational, especially if we get the machines connected and the reliability set, where you don't have with everybody talking on the same page, because predictive maintenance, that's part of information automation. Hey, something's going on wrong with the machine tomorrow because this is what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, picture this, Tim. This seems to me like something it could be out there, but this could happen. Picture this. I want to take a customer's file. I want to generate a CNC program from first principles with tools that I have on hand. And I want all of that program put together, and I want something highlighted that says, here's the potential issues, here's the fixturing problems. All right, so there's software that enables you to do that, right? Well, back out a little bit and say, what if you say, talk to your computer and say, hey, can you write me a utility that can take this file and do all of these things to it and give me a program that I can run on the machine? And then generate a document that highlights any problems. I imagine a day where the computer can just do that and from first principles build the entire app that can operate on your file in that way. And then you can use that app again if you want or not. I actually think that that's a reasonable outcome within the next 10 or 20 years. Imagine if you didn't have to use a vendor software. You just talk to your computer and it's like, oh, okay. And it builds it.
And you mentioned in a recent column of yours where, I remember a lot of people reacted to it. Manufacturing is a safe haven because you read all sorts of articles in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, and it's like, hey, guess what? The software folks are writing themselves out of a job.
Yeah, like if that happens, what happens to the software companies that are making software? Uh, like they become functionally obsolete. Now, maybe it doesn't go to that level. We'll have to see, but there are certainly a lot of like B2B SaaS companies that are going to be really pressed. When I wrote an article about this, a couple hours, I just conversationally created an app, like an online Kanban app that I could share with one of my employees who's in Oregon so we can track our like credit terms onboarding flow. And we just did that at a cost of like $5 using Replit. And now we have this tool. We don't have to pay a subscription or anything. Like I did that instead of subscribing to Monday or Jira.
It's here now, and it will be here in the future. So, well, guys, thanks so much for your time. As always, it's been a pleasure and very engaging. I think the future looks very different, but I think it looks very bright too. So, I'm optimistic to see where things are headed. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Next Gen Metal Fab, and we'll see you next time.
The Next Gen Metal Fab podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association and part of the FMA Podcast Network. The show is hosted by Tim Heston and Caleb Chamberlain. The podcast is produced and edited by Garrett Slager and Dana Weicker. Additional production support by Dan Davis, Andy Flando, Mike Owens, Billy Culpa, Elizabeth Gavin, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.
Maybe we'll get some Homer Simpson vehicles.